fortunately, the theater community was one of the first to be hit very hard by the HIV epidemic. And in the early days, I mean, there was absolutely nothing. And people were trying everything to stay alive. And there were, people would read that there was such and such drug that they could get from Mexico, and they were importing everything. And, and I think that for me, I felt that there were two solutions to the epidemic. I mean, well, three. Obviously, we needed to learn what caused it so people could prevent it. But even before we learned the exact virus, we, had strong suspicion that it was sexually transmitted and started encouraging people to use condoms. The second thing was that we needed science. If we were ever going to find a cure, we needed clinical research, we needed trials, we needed investment in science, and we needed political leadership. We needed who was going to mobilize the country, and it needed to be elected officials, but it also needed to be community leaders. So it was sort of like we needed a march on dimes. We're going to get rid of it just like polio. There had to be this real mobilization towards it. I left the theater and I went to work first locally in Washington and then nationally working politically. But to be successful working politically, I had to learn the science and what the science was and what needed to be done. Everything from, how we were approaching this. I had been fortunate, my great liberal arts education, my junior year, half the semester was dedicated to the search for the double helix. And so I, as a result, understood retroviruses. Wow. And, and I have to say, when you're sitting in Seneca Falls, New York, and this would have been 1980 was my junior year, sitting in Seneca Falls, New York, sophomore year, reading The Search for the Double Helix and thinking, this has absolutely nothing to do with my dream of being on Broadway. Nothing. But a liberal arts education, makes you hungry to learn the world, and that includes science. And so I found that, which was like a detective story, a great read. But when then HIV came along and when the science was being discussed, clearly I didn't understand it in a way that, someone with a, PhD or other advanced degrees in science would, but I understood the concepts and could translate those to other people in my community. And that was really helpful in getting people to, one, not be as afraid, to be more informed, and to feel more control of their lives, and to begin participating in the science. And, many of us, we volunteered for trials. People who were positive volunteered for treatment trials. People who were negative volunteered for vaccine trials. And, I've been in 4 or 5 trials, since the beginning of the epidemic. And that's been important.